It is a great honor for me to be with you today, Amita Di, because you are one of the ashramites who came here at a very early age, met Sri Aurobindo and Mother, and so we will have many sessions with your recollections. And I would like to begin today if you would tell us about your first memories of coming to the ashram.
I was only 7 years old, and we were put up in another house, not this one. This one, from the time I'm 8 years old, whether we are coming as visitors or not, we have always been put up here.
So it is a great honor for me to meet you, Amita Di, and to be in your presence as one of the senior ashramites who has had the direct contact with Sri Aurobindo and Mother. And I hope we will have many, many sessions where we can all over the world appreciate your remembrances. Today, perhaps we could start with your earliest recollections when you were a child and first came to the ashram.
As I told you just now, we had come in 1940, and I was just 7 years old. And I was about that high, and I was very interested in everything that was happening. We came in for the August darshan, and at that time people waited in the courtyard of the ashram, just as it is now, in different batches, seated quietly, and the darshan usually began around 3 p.m. And we were called by Buladar, you know, the one in charge of the electric service, as soon as the batch had to move out. So we were called up, and when we went up the staircase and turned right to the darshan room, Mother and Sri Aurobindo were seated, like in the darshan picture that Cartier-Bresson had taken. But I was a little child, and my father, Nolisen, suddenly gave me an envelope with his offerings. And so I carried the envelope, and he told me, you put the flowers in the center, and the envelope not to the left, but to the right. Understood. Then I went in the line, but I was so curious. I stepped a little to the right and a little to the left. Just I saw Sri Aurobindo and the Mother before I reached it was my turn. And I used to, formulate my thought. So my formulated thought was, you're both so beautiful. Who should I look at first? But I was taught how to first look at Mother, when Mother will say it's all right, do pranam, look at Sri Aurobindo. So after that it was my turn to put the offering envelope. And then I got a little confused. So I said quite loud, thinking loud, not this one. And Sri Aurobindo started smiling at my hesitation. After that, Nirodha and Champaklal, who used the flywheels beside Mother and Sri Aurobindo, told my parents, and they always peep out when I come for darshan. So she... Now, that was the first year, and we came to know that there were a few flowers which were called special flowers, which had to be counted and given. So you counted them, put them in a bowl or a dish with a little chit marking how many there are.
Was this during the
How
war?
many? Yes. And Mother had said that she had a pact with nature. Mother had a pact with nature and she wanted these flowers counted. And one of the flowers which I liked very much was the transformation flower. It had to be counted. We used to go quite far with one of the older sadhaks who had taken Mother's permission to call us. I was just 7 and Chitrali 13 or 14. To collect flowers from what is the Yuko Bank area. There were these transformation trees and the transformation flowers would be falling on the pavement. We used to go and pick them up and bring, count them, and then they would go to the mother. And it was very far from me, from Golconda area to that place. My legs were aching.
You were only 7.
I was only 7. So then, but I loved flowers. And transformation flower, I told my mother, the fragrance, the smell is so beautiful, I feel like eating it up. So I filled, and we used to take hankies of this sort, gents hankies, and bring them in that. One day, there were so many flowers that there was no way of putting any more in the handkerchief. So I put my dress up like that, and in my dress I collected as many as possible. We were crossing the balcony street to go towards Golconda. We lived in a house which was known as Millie's house afterwards, opposite Apagon. We were staying there. So when we were crossing the street, I suddenly saw Mother on the balcony, and I told my sister, "See, Mother." And Mother looked at us and smiled. There was no balcony darshan at that time. Mother had just come out on the balcony to look at the sunrise. She used to come sometimes there, going by Pavitrada's room. And so Mother looked at us and smiled and saw me with the transformation flowers. And after that, when we came again, during that first stay, I wanted to work because I'd seen everybody in the ashram worked and it was run so smoothly, but then they were in great difficulty in the dining room. My mother used to work part-time in the dining room, I think it is that year. And so they asked me, they had big tumblers, enamel tumblers, blue and white color. They said the tumblers are all filled up there. Those who will come, they will come and sit for their lunch. You bring the your tumbler of water to them. And I was so tiny that my hands didn't go round the tumbler. They were too small. So I used to walk like that, watching that the water may not spill out again. And the sadhaks who were having lunch used to laugh. But I did that work very seriously.
Now, when was the first time you saw Sri Aurobindo?
That year. That year, 1940 August and 1940 November. We were here for 4 months. And the mother used to see us thrice a week around 5 p.m. Everybody had their own timings, and mother used to see us on the staircase. She would stand at the head of the staircase, and she used to give me, my sister reminded me, she used to give me always the tithunia flower. The physical consciousness turned to the light, the tithunia flower. And afterwards, and the psychological perfections she used to give to everyone. I think it was 1940. The other memory of flowers is with mother is in 1942 or 43 or even later. So that is the first memory.
So you stayed 4 months and went back?
We went back. And we came back in 41 April. At that time, mother had chosen this house for us. And we used to take the first floor, and downstairs disciples used to stay.
This very house?
This very house. But it was very different in structure. There were no partitions and all that.
Can you give us just the smallest intimate glimpse of what it was for you to see Sri Aurobindo?
I don't know. I was too young, and this is too long. There's too long a gap. All I can say is that when you stood in front of Mother and Sri Aurobindo at that time, and I turned to Sri Aurobindo, nothing existed for me except his eyes, and as if already I felt a certain vastness there, which was wonderful for me. At age 7, you can't say anything else. But I knew it was a very special place, and it was the place which I liked very much. There was no sort of chaperone around me to take me around. I could move around on my own, and it was the happiest place I could have been in. So everything was very safe, and houses were very different. The ashram main building was as it is, almost as it is now, but there were houses which belonged to the French people around, and that which is Junjun boarding belonged to a French family, and that which is Poona's house also belonged to a French family. That which is de la Font, that is also that belonged to a French family. There were a few houses which belonged to the ashram, and I used to recognize them with the grey whitewash, The others were yellow or red. These
How
were
this grey ashram building color?
ashram grey
what
color.
Is the story behind it?
Mother must have chosen it. It was the most pleasant color for the warm weather, I think.
Amita, can you tell us briefly what brought you to the ashram? When did you hear about Mother Sri Aurobindo? How you came to the ashram? About your family little background?
Oh, that. My parents had come in 1939, the year before that. My mother was a very good organizer of everyday life, everything in place. And when she saw the ashram of 1939, she had said, I'll have to show this to my children. They must see this place. The harmonious organization is what struck her. For me, in 1940, as I told you, everything was safe and pleasant, and you could do what you liked. We had our study hours, and there was the library with the ashram. You see now the, what is it called? Ranju does this thing, beside the reception.
Oh,
Reading room. the reading room, that was the main library of the ashram. And we used to go, my sister was quite a voracious reader. She used to go to get books from there and read and come back. It was that year. Then I went with her and I saw that there were these ladders, which you hang along the brass bar to fetch the book from a top cupboard. I was very interested. I said, well, how do you go? Then Premanand was the librarian, a very meticulously correct in all his movements and the way the book would be registered and where you would sign. Everything must be correct. So, but I was a child, so I was always, everyone would look at me with a smile. So I told him, I want that book. So he said, it is too difficult for you. I want that book. So my purpose was to see how he would hang the ladder and climb it to bring up. It was a whole series. The dark blue color with the golden letters for that series caught my interest. So he brought it down and I took it home. The next time, I think within 2 days, my sister came to return her book. I went with the book, hardly able to hold it in my hands. I told him it's too difficult. So he said, I told you it was difficult for you, but I have a book for you today. And he had Charles Kegley's Water Babies. And so I took the Water Babies home. I was reading it very carefully, and I liked it very much. And suddenly, in the chapter of the chimney sweep, Sri Aurobindo spoke from his room. And he said, I am like the chimney sweep. I wondered, I stopped. It was the house opposite Apagong that we were staying in. And he said, I cleaned the smoke, I cleaned the cobwebs from everyone's minds. So I'm a little bit like the chimney sweep. I cleaned the cobwebs from people's minds.
And you
From
heard
his room.
You heard that from
Yes,
his room?
he was in his room and we were in the house. I think it was a thought process that the others couldn't hear, but I could catch
But you
it.
heard it clearly.
Absolutely.
Many people have described Shimna's voice. People are curious to know how was Shimna's voice. So, what is your impression?
That I wouldn't be able to say. My mother was very close to her. I have never seen her. My mother was very close to her because my mother as a child was in Shillong when Sri Aurobindo was in Alipur jail, 1908. My mother was 8 or 9 years old, and she has written an article in Purodha describing Mrinalini Devi. And my mother told us at home here that she was, when Sri Aurobindo was at Alipur jail, Mrinalini Devi wore only a black bordered sari. And every morning she used to pray, and on the mantelpiece, because at that time you had the usual chimney, you had wood, and it's quite cold out there. She told me that there was a photograph of Sri Aurobindo's and a photograph of one or two other, I don't know if Sri Ramakrishna's photograph was there, maybe Krishna or whoever she would pray to. And she used to every day do a garland and put there and put incense and pray. and she was a very quiet person. From time to time, I think my mother told me, she used to play on this pedaled harmonium. I think it was about her, my mother had said, and she also sang. But I can't say any more than that. I'll have to look up my mother's notes if there's any.
Do we have that article that mother wrote on?
My mother wrote on Mrinalini Devi.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
It's in Bengali?
It is in Bengali, but I think Babuda translated it into English, or somebody might have translated it
So
in
it has
English.
come out in a book form somewhere?
No, not
Or
book form. It
article?
was just one article in Purodha.
Could we upload it on the internet? Then people can see it. Because when they read Bengali, we have a whole Bengali section also.
I don't know if you'll have to
Uh-huh.
ask. I don't know who looks after the magazine.
Oh.
But you don't have personally that...
I
that-
don't have any picture.
Now, when you told me the other day how you went before Sri Aurobindo to read something.
No, not really. Oh, about Mrinalini Devi, Nirodha has written, and it has come out in a booklet form,
Ah,
Mrinalini Devi. So, I don't think I have it right here. I'll see if I can trace it. We had it at home. About the recitation, you see, I have a very strange story to tell you. We were in our English class, and at that time, where the gymnasium is, that was our school, and Shishida, who was the principal, Pavitrada was the director, he used to hold our English classes. And we were doing a very difficult narrative, Badi Prabhu. It was very difficult for us. So then one day, Shishida was asking the students to recite. When I got up, I said, anything I like. He said, yes, whatever you like. So I chose the speech of Badi Prabhu, Tanaji Malsure, not in this living net of flesh and nerve, nor in the flickering mind is a man's manhood seated. God within rules us, who in the Brahmin and the dog can, if he will, show equal Godhead. Baji or Matsuri is but a name, a robe which covers one alone. We but employ Bhavani's strength, who in an arm of flesh is mighty as in the thunder and the storm. I ask for 50 souls.
Beautiful, beautiful.
So that was the beginning. Of course, my voice was younger and much better, but I just recited that. And Shishida just sat. There was tension, and the whole atmosphere was vibrant with the words. Sri Aurobindo in his room, mother in his, and we were in the school here. And then he told Noleda and Amritada, and he chose me for reciting that 1st of December, that annual day. So from then it started, and I recited who in front of Amritada's room in the meditation hall. And Shishida was afraid that I was so young, there would be a hall full of people. First time I would be reciting, maybe I forget. So he made a selection of a few stanzas, not all the stanzas. Then I recited in front of Amrita's room. The next morning, Shishida told me, Sri Aurobindo has said that the whole sequence, the thought is cut off, truncated. So a few more stanzas have to be added. You will be able to recite, yes? Then a few more stanzas were added. I recited again in front of Amrita's room, where Mother's and Sri Aurobindo's portraits are there, on that side, and facing where Mother's couch is. So that's how I recited. And the next morning I was told, it is all right, now it will be. So that's how I started. And the next annual day we had done that year, Perseus the Deliverer, a few acts, a few scenes as our class work. And it was to be a very serious work because we had tests. So the question, I still remember, explain with reference to the context and a few lines. They are my brothers, Andromeda's speech. And these men are like my brothers, or something like that. They too will feel bad when they are. It's a pity I've forgotten the right words, they are beautiful words. So it was explained with reference to the context. So at that time we had studied the prologue in detail, and Shishida chose the prologue for the recitation. And he told us, Mother used to distribute to all the school children, there were about 30 or 35 children, in what we call the darshan room, where we enter for, or we come out from Sri Aurobindo's room, that long room. Mother used to enter by the door which we use for exit, coming out. And one row of people, some teachers, but mostly students, would sit back to the wall, and then another 2 rows were sitting back to back in the center, and another row along the wall, the other side, where the 3 windows, shuttered windows. So Mother used to give either a toffee or a small tomato, according to what she had, rarely a flower, and she would give to one and the other. And she would go like that. So it was in that room, that day, when we had to recite the prologue, the whole group was sitting towards the door, facing the darshan couch, and we were in front of the darshan couch to recite from the prologue. I was doing Athene, and there were 3 boys who were doing the voyages of the sea, and they were very reluctant because Shishida had asked them to kneel down. And they said, oh, to this girl who is standing at Athene, we have to kneel down. And they were rather reluctant, but naturally everyone did it. Mother went in to Sri Aurobindo's room, came out, and stood near the doorway and said yes, that Sri Aurobindo was ready to listen to us. And then we recited. So after the prologue was over, I went in last. That's what I told Narayan. I went in last in the queue to receive whatever Mother was giving that morning. And when I went, she caught my hand. She said, "Toi, tu pourras faire. You will be able to do this sort of thing."
Did Mother take French classes? You were a student?
No. My mother took our French classes and translation classes after 1950 for the bulletin. But at that time, in that very room, Mother used to hold what is called prayer classes for older people. And Mother called my sister and others for that class. She used to read one prayer, and they would ask her questions. Main questions were asked by Gabriel Monohatson. You know Gabriel Monohatson. He was here, and quite a few. After that, I think all these younger people, Chitradi, Tapatidi, all these people were if they had any question. Then one day, I was very keen on going to the prayer class, but I was too young. So I thought if Mother will call me today, so I told Mother, I would like one prayers and meditations book. So Mother went in, she was quite happy, and she came out turning the pages of that book and saying, very strange, this is the last numbered copy that I have. So I still have the book, but she didn't sign it. She gave it to me like that. And the arrangement was I would read it with Sujata Nahar, you know, Sujata Di. I would read with her, and if I had any questions, when I went to the Mother, I would ask the Mother personally. So one day I asked her, Mother, I have two questions. What is divine love? What is amour divin? And what is universal impersonal consciousness? So, or universal transcendent consciousness, I don't know, one phrase there was. So Mother looked at me, stepped back, and she was there in a column of light that came from the ceiling over her to her feet. Then she stepped forward. She said, that is amour divin. So I understood what it was, you know, to transmit the higher consciousness to all without preference. The other question, she said, that I will explain to you later. So that was my experience with prayers and meditations. And
I'd like to ask you if you would show us the first book signed by Mother and Sri Aurobindo, and we can put that on the camera.
That is when I was 13 years old. You get it?
Yeah.
So Mother has written and Sri Aurobindo has signed it. Thoughts and glimpses.
I should show the title.
Mm-hmm.
This is the title. You get it?
Yeah.
Can show again the signatures.
And now I show
Yeah.
the signature.
Good. So, why did Mother give you this book?
It so happened that Nirodha had the idea, and he said, there is a gift for you. And it was his idea, to get it started. Here,
Ah,
my birthday is marked 20th, but actually it was the 19th, which mother changed into 19th afterwards. All right?
thank you.
So when did you complete your studies and in the school, and then where did you work? You were a captain, you were a school teacher, you were a dramatist, you directed dramas, so there are a lot of things. which
That's
you can
where
share.
I think we will take it in another session.
Yes,
But I
definitely.
shall surely tell you that I didn't wait to finish my school but to start working, because everyone in the ashram worked. And the first thing I asked was for work. And because for me that was the way to prove to myself and to others that I was part of the ashram. And I was only 8 years old the following year when we came. We stayed here for a longer time, between February and December. Whole year we were here. From that time, Mother had chosen this house for us. So at that time, I used to work in the dining room, and I used to do wiping, and then I would arrange the tiffin carriers. The tiffin carriers had a cart where you fitted the carriers in. I think they use such carts even now. But at that time, the cart was actually drawn by Ravindra.
Ah,
Ravindraji. So the later younger generation called him Vandida. Vandi for cart. And they called him Vandida. And, but before he could take it, all those who served at the counter had to fill up the tiffin carriers. So my work was to arrange them in order, and the tiffin carriers had numbers. So I had to put the right number on a small mat. Each mat would have 3, and the numbers had to be correct. And you put the spoon for sticking and all that in such a way that after serving they won't have any problem. They will do it very quickly. Ishwar Bhai was in charge of the dining room, and he used to stay in the room on the right-hand side just as you enter the hall. So he gave me a chart which I had to follow. Tiffin carrier 231 here, next 562. You know, there was no order really in the numbers. After 2 days, he came out. Said, "Where's the chart I gave you?" I said, I know the numbers. And the chart is there. I put it near the pillar. He couldn't believe me. He took the chart and he checked all the positions. I said, "Yes, it is right." Much later, when I was remembering this story, Mother told me that very day, he told Mother she has a fantastic memory. He had told that story. So, work I started already, wiping and then arranging the tiffin carriers like that for the evening. When the school started, I asked my mother what will happen to the work that mother has given to me. I still remember I was standing here in the corner of this very door, and near my mother saying, "What will happen to the work mother has given me?" So my mother said, "Now studying in the school is your work for the mother." But mother was a very sensitive is a very ordinary word for her, but she understood everyone. And my work in the dining room continued, but in the evenings. in the evenings. We had no playground at that time. So we would work, and Minnie Chong's mother used to also work, and we two came together, and she would sort of take me through the street in front of Ganpati temple to the ashram, and the meditation was held at that time. I can't remember the exact hour of the meditation, but mother used to come onto the terrace. Everyone was seated in the corridor, in the courtyard. And mother would come to the terrace, the round place which is covered now. You can understand, above Diamant's room.
Yes,
Just above
yes,
Diamant
above
has room.
Diamant, yeah. Through the small door.
It is semicircular,
Yes,
isn't it?
yes, it is.
The top was not covered, it was a terrace. And mother would come and stand there. Earlier, mother used to stand in the meditation hall. When the meditation hall was used for meditation, mother used to stand with her hands on the balustrade in the middle of the staircase. I think we have a picture, not of hers, but the people in meditation, a sketch done by Shanibanda. And I had it. I will see if I can trace it afterwards.
There are also some photos, mother with her Japanese friend, they were taken on the human terrace.
Acha.
Some kimono.
That is terrace darshan. That is when I think her top floor was arranged, and the staircase that we followed to go to her room upstairs was an open staircase leading to the top terrace. Mother used it for going. And the most interesting stories are really mother's walk on the terrace, around 10:15 or so. Those who were free used to come to just see her, and she would stop her walk. It was, she would step out and look at those who are down in the courtyard. So, as I was saying, the most interesting story there is that mother had a black crow. Mother called him Blackie. And he would come to take from mother's hand a biscuit. So one day, mother would come out of the door and he would be on the parapet waiting. So mother, one day we saw mother was coaxing him, Blackie, Blackie, come, take it. Then he wouldn't take. So mother left it on the parapet and went away. I don't know what was his difficulty. Mother afterwards gave, I think it had to be a cream biscuit, not an ordinary biscuit. I don't know, I'm just imagining. But the way mother used to speak to the bird, extraordinary. And it would tilt its head like that, as if it understood. The other interesting thing is about squirrels, these chipmunks, you know. Mother used to go for a walk on the terrace with a parasol she would choose. There was a parasol stand. She would choose the parasol that would suit the color of her gown. And the attendant lady who used to be with her, we knew her as Chinmayi, who used to go with her. And one day, we used to sit, I used to be there along this staircase from Champaklal's room down there near the cashier's office. I used to be midways on that staircase. So one day mother had come up a step and there was a chipmunk pulling her gown. And she looked down. There was no way, so she asked Chinmayi to something. So Chinmay went in and brought some little piece of biscuit or something. And mother bent low to give it to the chipmunk. Then only it was pleased. But after that, there were so many of them in the ashram that they were eating up the fruits, and because there were some fruits in the ashram main building, sitapal and certain things like that. So mother asked them to be captured in wire cages, and they were all transported to the park. So all of them, and Parichanda, who was in charge of the garden service, showed me one day, see, I'm taking one there. So during the terrace darshan, mother would, it is difficult to say now, but this might be a little too audacious. But I used to stand, we would move with her as if around the courtyard, and until she would come on top of Pavitrada's room. There again she would break her walk and look at those who are. And on Mondays, every fortnight, mother used to wash her hair. So at that time, her hair would be loose, every fortnight on Mondays. So that Monday, when I was standing and watching, there was a breeze, and mother had her parasol. I think it was a pink parasol with her pink gown, and her hair was like that, and just flowing about that time. So I said, if only there were a photographer here, Sri Aurobindo heard me. And I was looking also at Chinmay, and he told Chinmay from his room, someone is looking at you, be careful. She adjusted her sari. So these were times when this was called terrace darshan, because people came and mother was actually taking a walk. At the window, the three windows that are facing the west, on the first floor room. On the first floor room you have the corridor, and this side mother's earlier room, where we go and put our donations and blessings and do a... Mother used to work there, and this was in the 40s, 1940s. Mother used to open the shutter of the window on the south, leave the center window because I think she had her table or chair there, and open the window, shutter of the window nearer the corridor. There were no fans at that time. It used to give her... So one day I stood watching, Anil Baron Roy, who used to stay in near the Prosperity thing. He used to be there. It was not a real darshan. He used to be there just to watch. So I was standing and watching, and mother opened the first shutter. He said, "Victoire la douce mère." Then he took off his wooden sandals. No, he went over to the other window, took off his wooden sandals and stood bare feet. And when mother opened that window, he said, "Au divin Victoire." Then I was standing near the service tree, and I said, "Why did you take off your your wooden sandals. He tapped me on the head like that, saying, "It's none of your business," and walked off. But the next day I was there because I could see Mother like that. And then on, it used to be around 8:30 in the morning. So most of the people had gone in for their work, but a few gathered afterwards to see that. And much later, and one day when I was looking at it, at the window, you won't believe it, we used to see just that much of Mother's forehead and all. But I was standing one day and seeing, I could see nothing but large eyes that covered the only eyes, nothing else. And that were broad and big, like as if covering the shutter, the whole area. When Barunda used to say, "Au divin victoire," in the next window, I came to know that Sri Aurobindo used to come and stand behind Mother. That's why he took off his sandals and he said, "Au divin victoire."
Well, I think we've had a wonderful session with you this morning, and thank you so much, Amita.
That's all right.
I hope that we can meet again very soon. We'd like to know about the teaching years, your artistic years, and perhaps even you might recite something to us one day.
Perhaps.
That would be nice.
I show you
also.
some paintings which were seen by the Mother.
Ah, yes,
and
wonderful.
she had come in. So next time we will do something
Yes.
like that.
Wonderful.